Ever had one of those moments where you you can't log into something, like maybe your bank account, and your heart kind of skips a beat?
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe you sent an email to the wrong person, like the exact person you didn't want to see it.
And then there.
It's like it's a digital world out there. We're all just trying to figure it out as we go.
Totally. And those little moments really highlight why cybersecurity is so important, even for like everyday stuff.
Absolutely. And today we're diving into a topic that sounds like, well, it sounds kind of intimidating, but it's actually the backbone of how we keep all that digital stuff safe. We're talking about the CIA Triad,
Sounds serious. Like something out of a spy movie.
right? Secret agents, confidential files.
Well, it kind of is like that. But instead of protecting government secrets, it's about protecting all information.
Hmm.
And it's surprisingly relevant to, your everyday life.
Exactly. So the CIA Triad, it stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Three big words, but they're the foundation of keeping data safe no matter what kind of data it is.
Like the three legs of a stool, you need all of them for it to stand up.
Perfect analogy.
Okay.
Okay, so first up, confidentiality. Let's say you're writing down like your deepest, darkest secrets in a diary. You wouldn't want just anyone reading that, right?
Definitely not.
Confidentiality is kind of like that. It's all about making sure that sensitive information stays secret, locked away, where only people who are supposed to see it can access it.
Exactly. It's all about control who has access to what.
Right. And we actually came across a few ways that this is done in the real world. Like encryption, for example. That's where they take information and scramble it up, basically turning it into a secret code. So even if someone gets their hands on it, they can't read it without the key.
Like putting a lock on your diary?
Yes. And then there are things like access controls. You can think of those as like the bouncers at a club. They decide who gets in and who doesn't based on certain criteria.
And just like with a club, not everyone gets to be a VIP. You need the right credentials to get access. And this isn't just some abstract concept either. This is about your personal information, things like your online banking details, your medical records, even those embarrassing texts you might have sent.
Oh, yeah. Those are definitely confidential.
Right. And when confidentiality is breached, the consequences can be pretty serious. One of the sources we looked at talked about a healthcare provider who got slapped with lawsuits and lost the trust of their patients because their records weren't encrypted.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big deal. And it makes you realize how much is at stake when it comes to keeping information private. Okay, so we've talked about keeping things secret with confidentiality. What about the I in our CIA Triad integrity? What does that mean in the cybersecurity world?
So if confidentiality is about keeping things under wraps, integrity is about making sure the information itself hasn't been messed with. Think of it like a recipe. If you use the wrong ingredients, the whole dish is ruined. Data is the same way. If it's been changed or corrupted, even a little bit, it can have huge consequences.
It's like that saying, garbage in, garbage out, right?
Sure. Exactly. If the information going in is bad, the results you get out will be bad too.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So how do we make sure data stays accurate? Like, how do we know that someone hasn't gone in and messed with it? We read about these things called checksums, those kind of like digital tamper-proof seals or something.
You got it. A checksum is basically a unique digital fingerprint for a file or piece of data. If even a single bit of information is changed, the checksum changes. It's a really clever way to tell if something has been altered.
So it's like if that seal is broken, you know something's wrong.
Exactly. It's a built-in alarm system for your data.
I like it. So if someone tries to like sneak in and change a number in a financial transaction, the checksum would immediately be like, hold up, something's not right here.
You got it. And that's just one example. Think about all the places where data integrity is crucial. Medical records, scientific research, financial transactions. Imagine the chaos if someone could just waltz in and change things willy-nilly.
Yeah, that'd be a nightmare.
Total nightmare. And it highlights why this concept of integrity, making sure the information is accurate and hasn't been tampered with, is so incredibly important. Which leads to a pretty big question in a world where information is everywhere and, let's face it, not always accurate.
How can we be more confident in what we're seeing and hearing?
Yeah.
How do we know what to trust?
Exactly. That's the million-dollar question, and it's one we're going to dig into in just a bit. But first,
Okay, so we've talked about keeping data secret and making sure it's accurate. But what good is it if you can't even get to it when you need it? Which brings us to A, availability, the last piece of the CIA Triad puzzle.
right, availability is all about making sure that data and systems are up and running, accessible whenever authorized users need them.
It's like, imagine you're trying to buy something online, like concert tickets or something, and the website just crashes.
Yeah.
Or you need to check your email, but the server's down.
Ugh, the worst. It's like the digital equivalent of showing up to a store and it's closed.
Totally. And these days, so much relies on us being able to, like, get online and do stuff. It's not just frustrating when things are down. It can actually be a big problem.
Oh, absolutely. Especially for businesses. One of the sources we looked at talked about these things called DDoS attacks. Have you heard of those?
Yeah, I think so. They're like digital traffic jams, right?
That's a good way to put it. A DDoS attack is basically when they flood a website or a server with so much traffic that it just gets overloaded and crashes. So it prevents legitimate users from being able to, access the website or the service.
It's like they're weaponizing slow internet. So what can you even do about that? If someone wants to take down your website, it seems like they could just, like, unleash one of these DDoS attacks, and that's it.
Well, it's not quite that simple. There are ways to protect against these attacks, like firewalls, for example. Think of those as like the security guards of the internet. They can help block malicious traffic.
Okay, so they can spot the troublemakers in the crowd and keep them out.
Exactly. And there's something called rate limiting, which is basically like a traffic controller for data. It can help manage the flow of traffic so that things don't get too overwhelmed.
So even if you do get hit with a sudden surge in traffic, it can kind of smooth things out.
Exactly. But just like with anything else, there's no foolproof system. Things happen, so it's also really important to have backups of your data and systems just in case.
Oh, right. So that even if one thing goes down, you're not completely out of luck, like having a spare tire in your car.
Exactly. Redundancy is key. And speaking of things going wrong, there was this crazy story in one of the articles we read about a huge retail website that got hit with a DDoS attack right in the middle of their biggest sale of the year.
Oh, no. Talk about bad timing.
Right. Their website crashed. Customers couldn't buy anything. They ended up losing a ton of money. And to make matters worse, their reputation took a hit because people were like freaking out on social media.
Oof, yeah. It's one thing to lose money, but losing your customers' trust, that's a tough one to come back from.
It really is. And it just goes to show you that availability, making sure systems and data are accessible when you need them, it's not just a technical thing. It can have real-world consequences for businesses, for people's lives.
Absolutely. And it makes you realize that this whole CIA Triad thing, it's not just about protecting government secrets or big corporations. It's relevant to all of us. I mean, we're all using the internet, relying on these systems every single day.
Exactly. And yet, it's amazing how little most people actually know about how it all works and what's at stake.
It's easy to think, oh, cybersecurity, that's just for, like, the tech whizzes to worry about.
Yeah.
But honestly, it affects all of us, whether we realize it or not.
That's true. We're all so plugged in these days. It's like we're all living in this digital world, but most of us have never even stopped to think about the rules of the road.
Right. And just like, knowing the rules of the road can help prevent accidents in the real world. Understanding even the basics of cybersecurity can make a huge difference in protecting ourselves online.
Absolutely. It's all about being aware of the risks and knowing how to stay safe.
So what are some practical things that people can do? Like, besides the obvious, don't click on suspicious links, which I feel like everyone's heard a million times.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many people still fall for those. But yeah, we got to go beyond the basics. Passwords, for example. Having a strong, unique password for every single account is crucial. It's your first line of defense against the bad guys.
Right. And no more password 123 or my pet's name, huh?
Probably not. Think of your password like the lock on your front door. You want it to be sturdy, hard to pick.
Yeah.
Mix it up with upper and lowercase letters, numbers, symbols. And if you're really serious about security, consider using a password manager.
A password manager, what's that?
It's basically like a digital vault for all your passwords. You only have to remember one master password to access all the others.
Oh, okay. So it's like a super secure, centralized place to keep track of everything.
Exactly. It takes away the whole hassle of trying to remember a million different passwords.
That's awesome. Anything else?
Oh, definitely. Being careful about what you share online is huge, especially personal information. And always be on the lookout for phishing scams. You know those emails or messages that try to trick you into, like, giving up your password or credit card
Oh
info?
yeah, those are so sneaky.
They really are. They often look totally legit, but there are always telltale signs if you know what to look for. Misspellings, weird email addresses, requests for information that seems off. If something feels even a little bit fishy, it probably is. Don't click on any links, don't reply, just report it and move on.
Report, protect, verify.
Like this.
So it's kind of like we all have to become our own personal cybersecurity squad, constantly on the lookout for threats.
In a way, yeah. But it doesn't have to be overwhelming. Just knowing the basics can go a long way. And it makes you wonder, with all this talk about protecting ourselves online, who's ultimately responsible for making sure our data is safe? Is it the government? Big tech companies? Us?
That's a really good question. Like, where does the buck stop?
Right. It's complicated. Governments set the rules, but they can't police everything. Companies have a responsibility to protect their users' data, but they don't always get it right. And then there's us, the users. We have to be proactive about protecting ourselves, but it's not always easy to know what to do.
It's like a three-legged stool again. All the legs have to be strong for it to work.
Exactly. It's a shared responsibility, and the more we talk about it, the more aware we become, the better off we'll all be.
Couldn't agree more. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive. Confidentiality, integrity, availability, the CIA Triad. Three simple words that represent a whole lot of complexity. But hopefully we've demystified it a bit and given everyone some food for thought.
Absolutely. And some practical tips to take away and, actually use.
Definitely. Big thanks to you for sharing your expertise with us today.
My pleasure. Always happy to talk about cybersecurity.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe out there.